All right, I want to thank you all for coming today. Here at Gerchek Real Estate, we really take pride in having a team that we can rely on to make sure that our investors are taken care of. And John Sanau from Empire West Title is here. He's one of those key players that just makes sure everything is in order and that all our investments, investors' paperwork and everything they need to make sure the investment goes smoothly is taken care of. So we really appreciate him and his time for coming today. So I'd like to introduce John Sanau.
Thank you very much.
Yep,
Appreciate
thank you,
it.
John.
Thanks for having me here. All right, you guys, thanks for coming today. I got a bunch of handouts I passed around that we're going to go over to you. A little bit about me, John Sanau, Empire West Title. I am the sales manager, director of marketing for Empire West Title in Arizona. Personally, I've been in the business 23 years, so it's not my first rodeo. I actually started out doing closings on the escrow side, and then I switched over toward the sales side several years ago. So that's a little bit about me. So I used to close the files you guys open. Now I run the sales team and work with our escrow folks to make sure you guys get great service, fantastic results on our side of it. So Empire West Title, for those of you guys who haven't worked with us before, I got a little handout for you showing all of our locations. We actually have 18 physical locations throughout Arizona. So we're a very fast growing company, one of the fastest growing title companies in the Southwest region. We're actually in 5 states. We go by different names in each state though. Texas, we're Trinity Title, Texas. In Nevada, we're called Western Title. Empire West Title is what we're known in Arizona. About 130 employees in Arizona. And we're as far north as Prescott, Flagstaff, and Sedona. Far south is Pinal County, where we have offices in Maricopa and Queen Creek. But the majority of the offices are in Maricopa County. Great coverage throughout the whole valley to help you and your customers convenient signing places. We do a lot of our commercial transaction though at our Biltmore office at 22nd and Camelback, where you guys work with Patty Marino and our team down there. And so we really appreciate your support. Gerchek Realty has been a massive supporter of us, and we appreciate the partnership very much. So that's a little bit about us, and we're an agency too. An agency requires an underwriter to actually issue the policies. So part of what title company does, right? We close escrows, we issue title insurance policies. The underwriter actually issues the policy. So we close the deal, we collect a premium for the title insurance, and the underwriter actually issues the policy for us. We have 5 different underwriters that we use at Empire West Title. So it's kind of nice because we get a lot of choices, which helps you guys on pricing and be able to get more deals done. Because our different underwriters, some will approve some deals and others won't approve different deals. And if you just have one underwriter and they won't approve a deal, then you're stuck, I can't do it. But having 5 choices is kind of nice because, okay, you know, like First American won't do it, maybe Westcor will. Especially on some of the commercial or some trickier deals we do, you know, we need a certain person to really look at on the underwriting side. Because we're in the risk business, right? That's what we do. We underwrite risk and we're looking for right deals that make sense. And it helps having those connections. Because some deals, you know, underwriters just won't do it. And if you only got one, then you're like said, we gotta go, we can't do it. You know, and that's no good because we can't get the deal done. So that's nice. Plus it gives us pricing choices too. We actually have a 35% investor rate where most title companies have a 30% rate. So 5% adds up on a lot of deals and especially larger transactions. So it helps on the pricing versus, hey, we got one escrow fee, one title fee. That's the way we are. So it helps us to be even more competitive in the marketplace. Empire West Title. Our average escrow officer has about 15 years of experience, so you're not dealing with rookies. You're dealing with people that know what they're doing, so you guys can bring deals, we'll keep you guys organized, we'll get it done, you can worry about your clients and prospecting and know that your deals are safe with us. So we appreciate that. Plus we can help you guys on the farming side as we've talked about before. Lists, get phone numbers for people you want to call on, circle prospecting is a great tool. If you get a listing in a certain area, we can go within 2 miles of that radius, get you up to 1,500 phone numbers. And then you can call them. So it's great if you got people that can call or you got a team, they can make phone calls, try to get more listings for those properties. That's worked pretty well. And you can go after renters that way too, because we can get phone for renters and homeowners. So circle prospect, if that's something you guys might want to try, or you get a listing, maybe we do that. So it's a pretty cool idea, no cost to you guys. So that's something new that we've been working with. So that's a little about Empire West Title. And the next handout, you guys, why do I need title insurance, right? What is title insurance? What is this stuff? Some people think I buy a car and need title, right? Or some people think we sell tile, like T-I-L-E. We're like, no, we're not in the tile business. You know, but I got a wife who's really good at designing and she can help you with that. She'll pick out a beautiful tile for you. But me, I can't really help you with your tile. We do title. So it's kind of funny. Title is protection for your best home investment. Your biggest investment in your life is buying a home, right? Or a commercial property, or a fourplex, or what be it. It's good to be covered on there, right? Title insurance is a one-time fee. You pay it one time. It's based on the sales price. The seller typically pays a policy for the buyer, called the owner's policy. And the buyer, if they get financing, they have to pay for a lender's policy to insure their lender, right? The lender wants to make sure there's no other mortgages, no liens, nothing that would affect their ability to foreclose in the future if there's a problem with the loan. So seller pays the owner's policy, buyer pays the lender's title policy. That's what we do, one-time fee, right? Where your homeowner's insurance, you pay every year, right? Title insurance, you pay one time. So it seems like a really good deal for you. And some risks that can be limited before insuring, and Renee, we're on the why do I need title insurance handout here for you there. You know, what are risks? Deeds, wills, and trusts that contain improper vestings and incorrect names. Any easements, any documents that weren't notarized correctly, outstanding mortgages, judgments, and tax liens. We check for all that. You know, some people, they just go ahead and record things on their own. They don't go through a title company. They're taking a big risk by doing that. Because if there's a problem, they're stuck with it. That great deal you thought you got, there's an IRS tax that you didn't know about for $100,000, suddenly your property is not such a good investment as it was before. So most people use title insurance. We recommend it because it protects you in so many ways. And at one premium, it's so worth it.
Question.
Yes, Renee.
I always use title insurance, of course. And a couple years ago, we bought a property with title insurance.
Mhm.
I think it was just the standard one. And it didn't come through that it had been illegal lot split, right? So we bought a
Mhm.
fourplex that had been divided from another fourplex 30 years ago.
Okay.
And it had been recorded like that with the assessor's parcels numbers and everything. And so now we need to go through the city of Phoenix to
Mhm.
properly divide the lots,
Mhm.
because they have like a big red star.
Right.
You can't sell it, you can't do anything to it unless you get done with that. So I had my lawyer send a letter to the title company and they said, no, that's not covered at all, so we're out of luck.
Mhm.
So what sort of, how could that have been prevented? What sort of, is it an Alta? I don't even know what we bought, I have it, my paperwork, but what would have, is there a higher level of title insurance that would have covered that? So now, whenever I go buy a property, I will make sure I go down to whatever city it is, whatever entity, make sure if there's any other thing that could cloud it. Because in this case, the fact that it wasn't split properly is a cloud in the title, but that didn't come up with any of the,
When they did the title search for you, that's
Mhm.
true. You know, sometimes if it's recorded, it'll pull up on the title. If it's not a recorded issue, if it's a city issue, if it's a zoning issue,
Right.
you're right, we wouldn't know about it unless we had a zoning letter, say, from the city. So if you're buying multifamily, if you have a lender, they're commonly gonna ask for a higher policy. They're gonna ask for a zoning letter to make sure there's enough proper parking spaces for your multifamily project. Since you mentioned you do a lot of multifamily investing, Renee. They're gonna make sure it's zoned properly. They're gonna make sure if there's any lot split issues. They're gonna require a survey as well, right? If you buy a commercial property and you get financing, they're usually gonna require a survey. A survey is required for us to give an extended owner's policy or an extended lender's policy, which is what you're talking about, which would have helped you.
Yeah.
Because with a survey, it would have disclosed some of these different items. Plus, a survey is great for commercial because it discloses easements that maybe you're not aware of, encroachments, right? Because you got this beautiful property, and guess what? Your pool is actually on the neighbor's property. But you didn't know that because you didn't do a survey. In the future, you want to change something, you want to add on to it, they're like, actually, we can't give you a permit for that because, you have this encroachment. Those are really big things to know. And almost every property has some kind of encroachment or some issue. Some aren't that big a deal. Some are a big deal. Some, if that's a lot line, you want to expand on it and you can't, that's a problem. So by getting an extended owner's policy helps you avoid some of those issues that you talked about.
Okay.
And an extended owner's policy, you have to order a survey. And the surveys can vary in price. A couple $1,000s probably average. It could be $1,500, it could be $5,000 if it's a really, really large property. So it depends on the type of property. But for $1,500, $2,000, it's a good investment.
Yeah.
To get an extended owner's policy. So we recommend that on commercial property. Single family, not as big a deal usually because it's lot and block as majority of Arizona is, or at least in the Phoenix market, right? Like lot 1, McCormick Ranch. They're all built these lot and block versus a sectional property. or sectional or meets and bounds, you'll see like further out, like lands, like the west half of the south half of the east half, you know. Those kind of descriptions, you'll see where vacant land is. But once it's subdivided and platted, then we call it lot and block. And those are simple, there's not usually lot issues, there's not usually as many problems. But if it's commercial, we recommend a survey involved, get an extended owner's policy. It costs a little bit more money to get an extended owner's policy, because the seller provides owner's policy to the buyer, right? If you get an extended owner's policy, you pay an extra premium for that, which is usually 50% of the premium.
So it's about 50% more.
So it's about 50% more to get that coverage. However, the lender's policy that you're paying for your lender ends up being $75 versus several thousand. So you're gonna pay more for the owners, but if you get an extended owner's policy, the extended lender that we're gonna give the lender is way cheaper.
So in a way, you should always just do the extended.
I think it's worth it, yeah, you know, it does, because it's not really costing you more money. I mean, if you're paying cash, then it costs you more money, but most people aren't paying cash, you know, if they are. So, but if you're getting a loan policy, that's the great deal, because you get such a savings on the lender's policy, and you get yourself all this extra coverage.
So
So
what-
I think it's worthwhile doing it. Some title companies, they won't give you that $75 rate, they'll charge you the regular combo rate, we call it. But if they know what they're doing and their experience, and they're giving you the best rate possible, then you're gonna get that $75 rate. It could be 75, could be 100, but it's usually around 75. So it is worth it. It gets you that coverage, it gets you that survey. I mean, sure, you gotta pay the cost of the survey too, it's a little bit more money. But all in all, it's not really costing you much more money, because that extended lender's policy is very expensive. Because it's based on the loan amount. Your loan amount's usually not that far from your sales price, right?
Yeah.
So that's a little piece of knowledge for you. Some other hidden title defects: why do I need title insurance? Forgeries, mistakes in recording, deeds by minors, fraud, liens for unpaid taxes, undisclosed or missing errors. These are all things we look for when we do the title search for you. And lenders require a policy, so you should too, Red. So that's why do I need title insurance. The next handout I give you guys is called Title Policy Coverage Comparison. Kind of goes over different variations in coverage for your policy. Kind of goes your question, Renee, too, like, you know what, hey, I bought a property, I got a standard owner's policy, right? You see how the first column is standard and how the X's don't go very far on what's covered? And then plain language, you get a little more coverage, and Alta homeowners, you get the most coverage. And these are owner's policies. When you buy vacant land or an apartment complex, you're usually gonna get a standard policy if you don't get the extended owners. So standard's pretty limited, isn't it? But if you get Alta homeowners, look how much more is covered. Everything in the Alta homeowners is basically what's covered in an extended owner's policy for you. So all those extra coverages that some of you talked about, they're not covered with the standard policy, they are covered with the extended owner's policy.
Would the issue that we encountered, would that have been covered with the?
It would have been discovered, and it would have been addressed. And then you'd have to decide, yeah, do I want to wait till I'm going to close? Do I want the seller to fix this before I close? You would have had that ability, so that would have helped you there.
Okay.
Because it would have found the problem. And then it's a buyer-seller issue. Or otherwise, you're right, you did it post-closing, it's your property. Title insurance you have doesn't cover you, so you got to spend the time and the expense of the city, get it properly, resplit or list, otherwise you can't sell it, right, in the future, can you? Because now you know about it, so now you have to disclose it, right? You can't say, oh, I didn't know, to the buyer that you sell it to. So now you got to deal with it. So that would have, if you buy a residential property, the Alta homeowners is what is standard for residential. So we give you a lot more coverage on residential than we do commercial. Because there's a lot less
How do you
risk.
differentiate residential versus commercial?
Well, residential is single family up to 1 to 4 residences. So like a fourplex or a duplex, triplex, which I know you guys do a lot of those, very popular. Those are considered residential. You usually get residential loans with them. Where you get more than 4, now you're into what's called a commercial loan. So that's how we differentiate.
More than 4 units on one lot or under one roof? Some of these properties might have like 2 fourplexes on one lot.
2 fourplexes, well, that would be 2, until they're platted. Those would be 2 separate properties, but they're both fourplexes. That should be residential still.
Okay.
Yeah. It depends how many units are in one building. Is how and I have to look at how the legal description was too. The legal description might be a little different too. But that sounds like it would be residential.
Okay.
And we can give the extended owner's policy, or we call Alta owner's policy for that. If you buy vacant land or commercial, you get the standard. So that first column, that's what you get if you buy vacant land or commercial, unless you do a survey. If you buy a lot and block, again, like lot 21, Gainey Ranch, you'll get the Alta homeowners, because that's what the standard AAR contract calls for. It says, hey, give the Alta homeowners if you can. If you can't, give the plain language, which is a little more, less coverage. If you can't get that, give the standard. So that's what the AAR contracts say. And so, but you can see what a big difference they are. We rarely give the plain language. It rarely happens. It's usually the homeowners. If it's lot and block, or if it's vacant land, or it could be a sectional property, maybe like up in Rio Verde or something, or it's several acres of land where we couldn't give anything about the standard policy unless you did a survey. Because same reason, because we don't know what's out there. It could be easements, or it could be encroachments, or it could be water issues, patent issues. So it varies. So not everybody knows about the different types of coverage. They're like, well, I know I need something, or I should have something, but I don't know what the difference is, or does it make sense to spend a little more and get a survey on a commercial property? I think we talked today that it really does. And then when you go to sell it, you don't have a problem. And that's a big deal, especially if you're spending a lot of money on a commercial property. That's a big investment for you. And you could probably use that survey in the future. The next transaction, when you sell it, you give that to the title company. Might reduce some of the costs involved because they can look at that again. Versus you might have to get that survey updated if the buyer gets a new loan, because they usually want it within a certain time period, like 6 months or 3 months. It depends on the lender. But that might save your buyer some money that you're selling the property to if they can reuse your survey. Just get it updated maybe for like 500 versus a new survey for 15. So that's maybe negotiate until, hey, I got a survey actually, might save you guys some money. Why don't you check with your lender, see if they'll let you use that old survey. And it's a thought that people don't think of. So don't lose that survey. Because we don't record the surveys, right? Because they're usually big, and they're this on the Mylars. And they're kind of unwieldy. And we got a special machine that actually copies them at the main office, because it's kind of funky. But it's pretty cool how it works too. But that's what surveys are. They're all rolled up right, and they're big, and they're bulky. They look like building plans, right? And they're kind of hard to understand. Maybe in the future we could do a survey class for you guys too. Bring a survey in and take a look at, okay, this is what it is. Otherwise it looks like a bunch of lines and symbols, and what does this mean? Where our experienced title officers at our main office, like they see them every day and they can go through this. It's amazing. And it's so important to have a good title department that the title company uses as well too. Our title people average probably 25 years experience, which is a lot. And those guys are good because they're looking at all these propers and legals and trying to anticipate problems and find issues and read the surveys and find solutions. So it's really good to have a really good title team as well, because the escrow officer, right, does the closing, the title department does the title search, right? And they're the ones, and if they miss something, because we make mistakes sometimes, right? And it's good to have them reliable. And there's a real shortage in the future, I think, of title officers, because you got a lot of 25, 30-year veterans. You don't have a lot of 20-year-olds that want to be a title officer. A lot of people don't even know what it is. I get back to, we're selling title instead of title, or I get a car, I get a title. They're like, what is that? You go to college, they don't really talk about escrow and title, right? I got a finance degree, and I didn't even think about escrow and title when I was going to ASU, right? My father was a developer though, and then I got into escrow after that, and I learned what escrow and title was, right? Most people, they don't know what it is. They just, I need it. I got to go see those people to sign all my papers. They're going to tell me how much money I got to bring in, or they're going to give me money. That's what they do, and they don't really understand the process. So.
But if it's not done right and you're not guided correctly, your investment is not worth nearly what you intended it to be.
You're absolutely right.
It has to be done correctly.
It really does. So having a good team, having a great realtor, having a great lender, great title company, great property inspector, all really important, right, to find those issues that you don't know about that might affect your ability to buy that property or sell it in the future, right? Very tricky. It just takes one mistake to make your property unsellable in the future. Maybe there's a restriction on a commercial property that you can't sell it for 5 years, or you can't do this. And if the title company misses it and you don't have a policy to cover you, then it becomes your problem. And that happens every day. There's things get mixed, especially on some of those commercial properties. They're very large, and those title searches can take a week. It can take 2 weeks sometimes if a huge property, like when they we did the title insurance for Chase Stadium years ago. That takes weeks. There's all kinds of funky things that come up, and a lot more things can be missed. So, and in commercial, you have a lot of attorneys a lot of times too, right? Versus residential, we don't see attorneys much at all in residential. Maybe if you're a celebrity or something, and or an agent, you go through them. But Usually commercial is when we see the attorneys, right? They're reviewing the title work, so they're helping you, which is kind of good, versus buying your fourplex or duplexes, maybe not as sophisticated on the title side of it, you know, so, you know, the attorney's not there helping you, then you need a good title company, or you need to get the right coverage, you know, in lieu of having an attorney go over all that for you, so. Kind of interesting, thought that might be kind of interesting for you guys. Closing costs, who pays what? Got a little handout for you guys. You guys are pretty seasoned here, but it kind of helps if it's a cash deal, if it's conventional, if it's FHA, if it's VA. CTM is cash to mortgage, it'll be like a seller carryback. Kind of a little cheat sheet here. Obviously some things are negotiable, but kind of gives you an idea. Or if you have a client or another investor, or, you know, give an idea of who pays what. Here's a nice cheat sheet for you guys. We also have an app too that we came out with recently that has all your closing costs. We can do a seller net sheet on it. We can do a buyer estimate for you guys, figure what your closing costs are in addition to your down payment, what your payment's gonna be, a seller net sheet to figure out what your proceeds are gonna be. Our lenders can use it to get all the title fees for their title quote to fill out their documents, so that's very helpful. If you guys want that, I can get that all set up for you. I just have to, in fact, you might already have it. You guys have, you seen the app yet? I'll show you how to do that. I send you an email and you can save it to your phone as an app, and you can access it wherever you are. So it's kind of cool. So if you're with a client, like on a weekend or evening, and say, hey, you know, what would I net, you know, for this, you know, versus using your website or using some paper for that, it's kind of cool. Where you got a buyer like, God, if I pay that, what am I going to come in with for the closing? You know, if you can't get a hold of your title officer, right, maybe on the weekends, maybe after hours, it's a way for you guys to put that together, give you a good estimate. Okay, that makes sense. Or if I sell that for this, I'll net that. Okay, I got enough for this purchase. Just a cool tool. If you're interested, let me know. I'll send you an email for that. It's easy to save to your iPhone. And you can use it on iPhone, Android. You can use it on a Surface. You can use it on desktop. You can email the quote to someone. You can print it. So it's pretty cool, and it's free to you guys. So that's kind of cool on the fees. You know, because like, well, what are the title fees on this? You know, you can just put it in, and bam, they're right there. So that's pretty cool. And those quotes, they're going to have normal fees. There'll be investor fees that will actually make those lower, but it gets you guys a ballpark of what you're looking at, knowing, hey, if there's discounts, it's only going to lower those title fees. Does that make sense? Okay. Critical date letter. You guys got this 2-page deal? Critical date letter right here. This is what we send out on commercial transactions. Residential, we don't usually send it out. Everyone follows the AAR contract, and commercial, there's so many kinds of contracts, right? It seems like every broker we work with has a different contract. Some use the commercial AAR ones, but it's all across the board that we see. So usually we see a different one on every deal. So this is what we send out to the seller and buyer. We would copy the agents, we'd copy the attorneys for that, and we pull the information from your contract, kind of go through and pull out all the critical stuff for you guys. So you guys, you know, at a glance can see one page, okay, you know, that's when we open escrow. And due diligence, when does that expire, right? It's usually a certain time period from the opening of escrow, right? Sometimes opening of escrow is defined as the contract. Sometimes it's contract plus earnest money deposited. It varies. So we gotta look at that because we gotta know when all the time periods start. If that's not right, then all the other dates are wrong. So this kind of gives you guys something that you can follow along with, give to your investor clients as well. If you got multiple investors, okay, yep, this is what we got. You know, we got 45 days due diligence, and then if everything's fine, we got to put another $100,000 down. Additional deposit, you know, when do we gotta notify seller if we want to cancel? It kind of gives you a guideline versus looking through like a 30-page contract, right? Like, where's those dates, or what page was that,
Yeah.
right? Because some can get really long.
And most title companies don't put this effort.
That's awesome to hear. We appreciate it because we look at it as standard for us, and it just helps. I mean, sure, you guys can go find this on your own if you take the time and look through it, but it's nice to have. And we double-check this a few times because sometimes we got to think too. It's like, okay, what is that opening, or how does that define that?
Yeah.
Really big deal is because, right, you miss your due diligence by one day, you can't cancel now, right? Or you can, but there's penalties. You know, and those are big days. You know, especially on a big property, that can be very costly. So that's called a critical date letter. We like to send out for you. I just want to give you a sample of what that looks like, so you can get an idea for that. And you can ask for one too. If you haven't received it, but that's standard for us. I give you guys a copy of a commitment as well, commitment for title insurance on a commercial title report for you guys. Right here, beautiful, Empire West title, community title. Shows you what it looks like. This is what we send out when we open the escrow rate. This is what not everybody understands, and a lot of people don't look at it or don't figure the title company, they'll tell me if there's a problem, right? Well, they may or they may not. It depends. So it's kind of good to like have a basic understanding of what to look for, where should I look at something. Obviously having a competent realtor team that does go through these, they look through these, so their buyers and sellers don't have to. But sometimes buyers and sellers have attorneys or they look at it themselves too. There's a lot of different eyes on this, but this is really big and we try to get this out as soon as possible so everyone can look at it. So if there are title issues, you can respond, because in your contract you're gonna have a certain time frame, right? So if there's a problem here, if there's a lot split issue that was disclosed, or there was some easement issue, if there is no access to your property, tax liens, what be it, you want to look at this and go, you know what, hey, I'm not going to buy it unless you guys can fix this, or can you take out this exception? This is very important because this is affecting your ability to sell it in the future and what you're accepting on the property. So the first page, there's always a Schedule A, there's a Schedule B Part 1 and a Schedule B Part 2 in every title report. Schedule A is going to have the seller or the buyer, it'll have the legal description. If the buyer's getting a new loan, it'll have the loan amount, and it'll have our name on it. So it's kind of who your players are, seller, buyer, legal, make sure we got the right property involved. Exhibit A is your legal description. And then you get to Schedule B. It's the Schedule B Section 1 requirements page, you guys. This is our requirements. The requirements is everything a title company has to do to get the deal closed. So this is like our book here. We got to satisfy all these conditions. As long as we can do that, then we'll record the documents. We'll give you the buyer the title of the property. And if we can't satisfy one of these, we'll tell you. Here's the deal, seller, you got to fix this. Buyer, are you okay accepting if we can't do this? This tells us what we got to do, so it's kind of our checklist. Like number one, pay all the taxes, right? We're going to make sure all the past taxes are paid current. We don't pay future taxes, right? Because we don't know those. But we'll make sure everything's current as a close of escrow, prorate those, so that you, the buyer, you got a clean start, then you'll just pay them, when they're next due. If there's a new deed of trust being recorded, we'll record that. Number three, we're going to release any assignment of rents. A lot of commercial properties, they have a deed of trust. There'll also be an assignment of rents that gets recorded with it. What that is for, if the bank has to foreclose, they don't like you to be able to collect the rents while you're in foreclosure. They're like, well, that doesn't seem fair. You're not paying us and you're collecting the rents. So they'll record this assignment of rents and leases where you're saying, hey, if you don't pay me when we start foreclosure, all those rents and leases can go to the bank. So that way the bank's getting some while they're not getting paid by the property owner. So that's what the assignment of rents and leases is for. Number four, we talked about a survey. We talked about earlier. That's what we need, a survey so we can be able to give more coverage, give an extended owner's policy, to be able to give the lender certain endorsements that they require, especially on commercial transactions. There's over 100 endorsements that we can give. And think of an endorsement as like a rider to your homeowner's policy, like say for a nice watch you have. So we're going to get a jewelry rider for that. Endorsements are basically the same kind of things. They're additional title coverage that either you or the lender, it's usually the lender though, that wants them, that they want for more protection. And there's a cost for each endorsement, so some endorsements can get really expensive on commercial endorsements. Buyers, they don't usually get additional endorsements, except on commercial where you got attorneys involved. And they tend to ask for more endorsements to cover you more, which just adds more expenses for you too. But otherwise, if there's no attorneys, you're not going to usually get more endorsements as a buyer. Okay, so that's important of a survey. Zoning endorsement, we mentioned that. If it's a zoning endorsement, we would need a letter from the city showing how the property's zoned. And we order those, sometimes the bank orders, sometimes the brokers even order those. But you got to send a letter in, you can't just go to a site and they send it back, this is how it's zoned. So hopefully it's zoned right, otherwise that's a problem, it needs to be fixed before we close. You probably want to know that if you're buying an apartment complex that's actually zoned. It's something totally different than that. That could be a problem. Survey, proper notification. We always do an inspection on the property too. With every commercial transaction, we'll inspect it. And some residential ones we will if we know there's new construction, because we want to make sure there's no priority. There's no mechanics liens. Like, okay, there's no encroachment issues too. Or like, wait a minute, this is on the neighbor's property. Or why is there all this lumber on the property? We thought it was vacant land. Just delivering lumber, it can break priority and it can cause a lien in the future for you. So we would make sure we get a paid receipt from that vendor or a lien waiver before we would close escrow. So that gets problems, especially on vacant land deals. And because liens go back in priority, mechanics liens to when the job started, not when it's finished. So they may not file a lien until a month after you close your transaction. and say the seller had done some improvements, but they didn't pay them yet, the lien gets filed a month after you closed, you're like, wait a minute, I didn't know about this, the title company didn't tell me. Well, the title company didn't know, because it wasn't recorded till a month later. So if you don't have mechanics liens coverage, then that's an issue for you, the buyer. It could also be an issue for me, the title company too, depending on what kind of policy was issued on that. So we're careful on mechanics. We try to avoid mechanics liens because they're no fun, and they usually show up after closing because they have 150 days really to file a lien from when they started work. And so that's why it could be 4 months after you close, they finally show up with that lien, and it's a valid lien. You know, we'd first go back to that seller and say, hey,